today's example, I will show you how to configure basic security policies on a Fortigate firewall. So currently looking at the lab, as you can see, we have a virtualized Fortigate firewall. Port 1 currently connected to a test PC, port 2 connected to an RDP server, port 3 connected to a web server, and port 4 connected to a terminal server. So obviously, we'll be using PC1, to source traffic from towards the RDP server, the web server, and the terminal server. So we will be using different applications, obviously, to access these remote destinations, so RDP, web, and SSH and Telnet, and so on. So currently, if you look at the networks that we have set up, so as you can see, these devices are directly connected to the firewall. So the firewall is the gateway basically for everything here. And these are the subnets, so /24 subnets for all of these devices. Obviously, the default gateway for these devices resides on the firewall. Okay, so very basic setup. Like I said, there's no need to do any routing for this lab. So everything is directly connected and fully routable. Okay. So let's go to the Fortigate firewall and see what's currently configured on it. All right, so as you can see, I have configured 3 policies at the moment: user to RDP, user to web, user to terminal. As you can see, I'm referencing ports, interfaces in the policies. So basically anything from this port and anything to that port. Same for all the other policies as well. As you can see, it's not very, I'm going to say granular policies at the moment, but this is just to show you, when I use RDP from the user PC, it will match this policy. When I access the web from the user PC, it will match this policy, and so on. And then, as we progress with this lab, we'll just make these policies a bit more granular. All right. So as you can see, let's quickly look at this. So as you can see here, it's only in one direction, meaning all sessions that's initiated by the PC towards these destination applications, RDP, web, or terminal, will be allowed. Obviously, there's no policies from RDP to user or web to user or terminal to user. So these are only one direction policies. And let's just look at, so any source, any destination, the schedule is always any service at the moment. The action is accepted, and we're not doing any NATs for this lab. Okay. Very basic lab. Let's quickly just have a look again. So again, we have an RDP server, a web server, a terminal server. We have the FortiGate inline, directly connected gateways for all of these PCs or on the firewall. And if we look at the policies only anything that's initiated from PC1 to RDP or PC1 to web server or PC1 to terminal. That direction is allowed. Anything that's initiated from here to there won't be allowed. Okay. Well, let's quickly log into PC1. All right, so this is PC1. So what we will do is we will spin up we'll create a RDP session towards the RDP server. So as you can see, this is the user PC. So you can quickly just close that. Let's go to right. So as you can see here, we have PC1 with 1.10. So let's open up the firewall quickly. Let's just clear the counters. All right, so at the moment we have cleared the counters. So when we spin up RDP, obviously we should see some traffic increase on this policy. So let's do that. Let's go to PC1. Okay. I'm going to go MSTSC. All right, so 10.10, that's towards the RDP server. So you can see at 10.10. So let's go to the PC. The PC1 and connect. All right, so now I'm already getting the prompt for the login. So that means that there's already communication happening. Okay. Right, so as you can see there, let's insert password. So while that is running in the background, let's quickly go and see what we can see here. Let's go to admin. Let's just move that a bit to the corner. Move that there. All right, so as you can see, it's prompting for the login. Let's see what's happening. So as you can see, we've got an increase in traffic on there. Let's go to the user PC quickly. All right, so as you can see now, currently the session is now established for our RDP from the user PC to 10.10. And here we just have a little folder on there to show that we are on the session. So let's see what we are seeing currently on Fortigate. So if we go to the CLI on Fortigate, we do a get system session list, right? So we can see there's a TCP session. Then if we do a diagnose system session list, we get a bit more detail of all the sessions currently running on the firewall. So what we can do is we can do add a filter, and add this DST for destination, and we add 192.168.10.10. Say list again, and now we're only seeing the session for that particular list. So as you can see here we have the source with the source port towards the destination server, and 3389, which is the RDP port, and it's protocol 6, which is TCP, and we can see the session is established. All right, so this shows you now we've got a session running, and if you go to the policy, you can also right click and you can say show in FortiView, which will provide you with some in-depth visibility. Kind of the information that we'll see in the session, you will be able to see on here as well. So you can go to sessions, and here it gives you kind of the same information. Okay. Let's go back to policies. Right, so what we want to do is we're going to now open a web page from the user PC towards the web server. So we can quickly go back to the lab. Here we have a web server with 20.10 IP destination IP address. Let's go to the PC. So I'm just going to minimize that. Then I've created a shortcut. All right. So here's a web page on 192.168.20.10. So let's maybe just refresh that. All right, so let's see what we are seeing on the policies. So if we go back to the FortiGate, what we can do is we can say here, filter clear. So now we want to add a new destination, and the destination will be 20.10. And then we run the list command, and let's see what we're seeing here. Here again, we can see from the user PC 1.10 towards 20.10 port 80. Okay, so that's great. Now we understand that the session has been established. Again, it's protocol 6 TCP, and the session is established. So let's do this as well. So we can click on here and we can say capture. All right, so as you can see, it's pretty quiet at the moment, so let's refresh. So the same thing, as you can see here, we have protocol HTTP running, the source of 1.10, destination port. Okay, so as you can see, we're seeing that same output on the session table. Okay, and if you go to the Fortigate interface, you can see. And the same thing if you right click on here and you go to show in FortiView, you should see that same session information as well. Destination port, destination application. Okay. And then let's spin up a terminal session to a terminal server, also from PC1. All right, so let's go to PC1. Let's minimize that. And we do run a PuTTY session towards 192.168.20.30.10. Here we go. All right, so now we have a terminal session running. Let's see what we see on the CLI. So what we want to do here is just to filter clear. Now we want to do towards DST, toward destination 192.168.30.10. And then we do a list. Sorry, session list. Okay. So what do we see here? So as we can see, we've got TCP protocol established. Okay. We have source, random port, random source port, and destination port 22. So the same thing if we do a Wireshark capture. Let's go capture, and we want to capture on that interface, and we go to PC1. And just to send a couple of commands. Okay, so as you can see, SSH, and then that's obviously the response. Same thing, source, destination, port information, and then the protocol. Okay. So let's do the following. So let's close this quickly. Let's keep that open for now. Go minimize and type in CMD. So I want to send a ping to 192.168.10.10. Okay. So let's close that. And let's do a Wireshark capture now towards the RDP server. All right, so as you can see, I'm sending a ping. So let's stop that. Here we can see request, reply. Okay. So there's the ping running. So if we go to this policy, what we want to do is we want to say we want to block everything else except for RDP. So, okay. So let's see what happens. All right, so as you can see, the ping is dropping now. It's not being allowed, but the RDP still looks good. Okay. So let's just confirm that. Let's see what is actually happening in the background. I'm going to do Wireshark capture again. All right, so as you can see, RDP session is still running. There's no pings going through. Okay. All right, so we do the same thing now towards the web server. So let me just minimize that. So now we're going to send a ping towards the web server, and that should be on 20.10 minus T. All right, so we can ping the web server at the moment, and then we go to the policy. We do the same thing. So we say, all right, so we want to just allow web. So we're going to close that, and we're going to say HTTP, and okay. So we go to the test PC. So as you can see, the pings stop now. Let's minimize that. Click on. And let's just refresh. Okay. So if we run another Wireshark capture on the web server. Well, currently there's nothing. So let me just go and refresh this page again. Okay, so as you can see, the HTTP is getting through. There's no ICMP getting through. Okay, and let's do the same exercise, but towards the terminal server. So if you go to PC1, towards PC1, towards the terminal server, we go to 30.10 10 minus T, and we're sending a ping. All right, so let's see. Let's minimize that. Okay, so we are sending a ping. Let's do a Wireshark capture on this interface first on GE000. So as you can see, the ICMP going through. So let's stop that, close this window. And let's quickly just go to the Fortigate interface. Again, let's just quickly log in. And we say diagnose system session list. That basically lists all the sessions that open, but we want to apply filters. So let's just apply a filter towards 192.168.30.10. All right, so this currently just shows the ICMP traffic that's going through. So let's launch a SSH session. Well, that session is still open, so let's quickly just have a look. All right, so here's the SSH session that's currently open between PC1 and 30.10. So as you can see. And then we also have the ping that's still running. So let's go and block all traffic except for SSH towards the terminal server. We want to allow SSH. Okay, so we go back to PC1. See the pings are timing out, but we can still access SSH. So let's see if we can perhaps access Telnet. So I just want to check something on the terminal server. So we have Telnet enabled. Okay, so I'm going to exit here and exit. Well, let's leave the SSH session open, and then we just spin up another session. And we want to use Telnet to 192.168.30.10. Okay. As you can see, we can't use that. So let's open Telnet as well. There you go. So Telnet. Okay, now we have SSH and Telnet. Let's try it again. So restart session. All right, as you can see, Telnet. All right, so I can't log in with the root because root is not allowed Telnet to this device. But as you can see, it's prompting for the login. So we know that Telnet is working on there. And let's go to the session table as well. Let's see what we are seeing now. So as you can see, there we have port 23, protocol 6, 23 for Telnet, and 22 for SSH. All right. So as you've seen now in this lab, we were able to open certain ports towards certain destinations. So obviously what you can do now is you can start and make these policies more granular. So how do you do that? So let's say, for example, we want to create a specific address entry for the PC. We can say, okay, let's create address entry for PC1. What, and specify the IP address 1.10. So okay. All right, so let's put that in there. We say okay. So as you can see now, the source is now only from that particular source. So let's update all these policies with that same address entry. So I'm going to remove that. PC1. And add PC1. All right, so this means now that only PC1 coming from this, anything coming from this interface and it's not PC1, it's not that source IP address, it will be dropped. So we go to PC1. So as you can see, that's still running. The RDP is still running. If you want to make it more granular towards the certain destinations, so meaning from a certain source only towards a certain destination, you can create your policies according to that as well. So how do we do that? So the same thing, you just click on your policy, you go edit. And now let's go and define those destinations. So you can say RDP server, the address of the RDP server. Let's add it in there. So, okay. All right, so now we've got a more granular policy. Let's say, so this policy is from user and only from that source. So from this interface, from this source, out this interface to that destination, still, always only that service can accept. If it doesn't match that parameters, it will hit the deny policy. Okay. So we go to PC1. So you can see the RDP session is still running. So let's see what's going to happen if I right click and I say disable. Okay, so now this policy is disabled. So it means that there's no other policy that will match, anything to from this PC to the RDP. So what should happen? This session should start to time out. So as you can see, it's starting to time out. So usually with RDP, it takes a while for the session to time out. But essentially, as you can see, there's no response. So this session is currently timing out. There you go. Enable. It should bring the session back up. Let's see what happens after the connection attempts. So while that is still running. So again, what you can do as well, if you click on here and you want to schedule specific policies, you can also do that. So here you have a schedule. Okay. So if you want to set up a particular schedule, meaning that this policy should only be active at a certain time of the day, you can do that as well. So for example, if you have a web server that, let's say, certain people can only access, during a certain time of the day, you can add a scheduler as well. So that means that at a certain point, start and end, or start and stop time, that policy will activate, and then obviously they can access the specific resources. And then obviously if the timer expires, then the policy will basically be disabled and it will be match on the implicit deny policy. So that way you can control also when certain services is accessible, so only during production hours or business hours, or however. And you will say that's obviously more, on a FortiGate, it's, there's a lot more that you can do on a policy level as well, but we'll have a separate session for that. Like I said, this session was only focused on, basic security policies and just to understand, how your policy's direction should work. As I explained previously as well, remember that a firewall is a stateful device, so it looks at where the session is initiated from and who's the responder, and you need to build your policies in that direction. Okay, so that's why in this lab, PC1 was always the initiator, right, for the RDP sessions, for the SSH sessions, and for the web sessions. It was always, these sessions were always initiated from PC1 towards those remote devices, and that's why the policies follows that direction. So always make sure when you build your policies that it's, the policies are built on those principles. Okay, and then obviously, like I said, if you really want to understand, if you ever building policies in a complex environment, the best thing would be to do a packet capture to understand the communication between two endpoint devices, and then build your policies according to that. There's also a nice feature that's built into the FortiGates where you can actually do a packet capture on the FortiGate itself. So it gives you the ability to kind of do what I've shown you now on the lab, where you can run Wireshark and actually see what is happening in real time. So you can do a packet capture on the FortiGates as well on certain ports, and you can see that bidirectional communication between two endpoint devices. And you can do a capture. You can enable filters if you want to be a bit more granular, and then you can download that file and open it up in Wireshark. So as I said, always when you're having challenges to maybe you're building a policy but it's not working, then do a if possible, do any policy so that you can allow at least the communication between two entities to work. Do a packet capture, analyze that, and then build your policies according to that information that you see in there. And that's it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hope to see you in the next one.